Smoker Wedmark.
Hey Scale Modelers, Outdoor Scale Modeling here. JP with Outdoor Scale Modeling, I should say. Continuing with my, forgive me there, had to adjust. My Fleet Air Arm Corsair. It's the, I'll say again, Hobbycraft one. That's what we got. I'm going to start paint today. You want to, especially on camouflage patterns, you want to do your lightest color first. So that usually means the belly. And so I've got it all smoothed up, ready to go, and got my little foam inserts here. Cover up the landing gear housing. Should be ready to go. And I don't think I've overlooked anything, done a, once over, and I should be ready to go. Pretty sure I've got the correct paints for this. I'm not a super big stickler unless it's something that I'm really interested in. Excuse me, on the color, I'm not a big stickler of, it's got to be the precise color. I know there are guys out there that will travel the ends of the earth to find the exact color that they need. That's not me. If it looks correct, if it looks similar to a photo, I go with it. You have to remember, guys, that, especially on these World War II aircraft, paint, just like every other resource, was limited. And sometimes people mix things differently, and I seriously doubt any two planes were exactly correct. You're always going to have variations, and that's probably changed in the modern age. But use some artistic, preference on anything. You got to take it with a grain of salt, because, like I said, it's very rare, I'm sure, that any two aircraft were ever the same. I'm not an expert, so don't listen to me. I went through my colors, and the belly of this thing for the Fleet Air Arm is supposed to be Royal Navy Sky Type S, and I said, what the heck is that? Because I don't do a lot of Royal aircraft, especially Royal Navy aircraft. So had to do a little bit of research. I thought I was going to have to do a lot of research, but I flipped the page and it said Royal Navy Sky Type S, duck egg blue. So went and looked in the old paint bin. I thought maybe, I'll get away with a little insignia white. I don't know. The aircraft I've seen do have a little bit of a blue hue to the belly. But lo and behold, I found AK Real Colors duck egg blue. So that's what we're going to go with today. Probably going to add a little bit of white to it, just kind of mellow things out. But that's what we're going to go with. Excuse me. Let me get a little drink here. I got my Peter Oxley gloves on. I find that gloves aren't always necessary when painting. I just like it, especially in the summer here in Texas. Fingerprints can get a little moist, and just kind of leaving them all over the plane. You're better off wearing something like this. Got my mask in. I'm in a pretty enclosed space, so I do wear a mask. I recommend it, guys. these particles, especially with airbrushes, are very small and they're going in your lungs. Even wearing this, I'm going to get some in my lungs, and who knows what that does to you over a period of 30 years. Guess we'll find out. But at least I did it, you know, if I do ever pay the cost for that, at least I was doing something I enjoyed. So, c'est la vie. All right, well, should we get it going? I'm going to start with the belly. Like I said, you want to start with the lightest color first on camo, and almost always it's going to be the belly. I just paint the belly first on most aircraft, period. It just makes sense from a masking standpoint. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put, I don't necessarily have the cleanest little jar here, but it's what I'm going to use. We're hoping it doesn't bleed. And give my duck egg blue a little shake, shaky shake. I like to give it a little, you know, let that aggression out. And we're doing good. I use a toothpick to help me pour it. Otherwise, you're just going to have a huge mess. So you want to put it at the tip of the jar, and it gives yourself a thin little line. Don't want to do too much. We want our ratio, you know, to be 3 to 1 starting out. And we'll kind of see, you know, okay, maybe I'm using a too bit of a technical term. So probably I would say 60%, I don't know, maybe 40, 50, or I mean, not 40, 50. I don't know, guys. I just do it by feel. I find the old adage of the consistency of milk is pretty good. It doesn't always work. I will say on these lighter colors, they're going to be a lot thinner than your darker colors. Darker pigments tend to be a little bit thicker, so you got to kind of take it easy with the light stuff. Like I said, my ratios, I just kind of go by feel. I've been doing this a long time, and I know what works and what doesn't. I would say the consistency of milk is pretty good. So what I'll do, I'll stick my Q-tip, toothpick in there, and I'll dab it on the side and kind of see where it's at. And if it runs like milk, you know, milk's not very thick, so you got to kind of eyeball it. If I can just get mix it up, get a little drop on the side there. See that? That's about the consistency of milk, I would say. And it should flow good through the airbrush. So let's give it a shot. Got this nice blue piece of plastic here. Here goes compressor. Won't be talking much, so observe. Airbrushes. Alright, first malfunction. Airbrush is sticking a little bit from last use, so I'm gonna kind of give that a little bit of thinner. Kind of free up all the gunk in there. I used to be a real big proponent of cleaning your airbrush every time. I've just found that's a waste of time most of the time because these things usually run pretty flawless. I mean, look at that. That's all it took. Just a little bit of thinner in there, freed it up. I'll find that if you are constantly taking these things apart, guys, and putting them back together, you start damaging things, especially like the small O-rings in there. The needle, you run the risk of the needles getting damaged every time you take it in and out, and it nozzles. And I have had less issues since I quit cleaning my airbrush every time. Now, every once in a while, maybe once or twice a year, I'll have to dismantle it and really get the gunk out, but for the most part, it's not an issue anymore. So, like I said, I don't recommend having to do that all the time. In case you're curious, I'm using a eBay special, and I'm going to tell you, and I'll make a video about this. I've had airbrushes that cost $400 or $500, and then I've had these. This is a $25 eBay special, dual action, adjustable valve here, airbrush called Point Zero. And I love this thing so much that I bought 5 of them. And I've only had to cannibalize one for parts from a mistake that I made, dropping it on the floor, damaging it. But these are good little reliable airbrushes. The day of expensive airbrushes is over, guys. You could be better off buying 4 or 5 of these things and having all that you need. You know, if you like spending money on the higher end stuff, by all means, go for it. I've still got high-end brushes. I've got a high-end airbrush that I haven't even taken out of the box yet because these have done everything I've needed them to do. So this hobby doesn't have to be expensive. Although it can be. Spend money on kits. You don't have to worry about this stuff. All right, here we go. All right, could use a little bit more thinner. Can't really see on there. It is spitting a little bit. You don't want that. You want just a complete smooth spray. You know, and when you get the little dots in there, the spitting, that's the paint drying before it hits the surface. So. Mind you, you know, these are lacquers, but I am dealing with the elements out here. Preferably, you would be in a nice climate-controlled area. It just is what it is, guys. I model in a shed, and I have to deal with the elements. That's why I've got 2 different moisture traps on my compressor, and I have to be, and even some days it's so humid here. That's me emptying my moisture traps. It's just, you know, it is what it is. You know, North Texas is pretty humid, but let me see if the spitting quit. Maybe that thinner just needed to mix real good. Nah, I'm still spitting a little bit. So I'm going to add a little tiny bit of thinner because it already seems kind of thin. It's not going to take much. Stir it up. Ideally, guys, you don't ever want to mix inside the airbrush cup. You really want to mix your paint in a separate jar. And a lot of that has to do with the pigment getting stuck down at the bottom here. You really want to have it pre-mixed before you even stick it in here. And so, but when you've got to add a little bit of thinner on the go, it just put a tiny little bit in there. I've got these control valves on mine. I bought them separate. They're from Mr. Hobby, I believe. And it really helps you control the flow of the thinner coming out of the bottle. So, there we go. All right, a lot better, not getting any spitting. So, we're going to rock and roll with that. Put that there. All right. There we go. All right, guys, so that was going good. I'm actually very satisfied. Very minimal spitting, but there were few little spots where it kind of spit up on me. Turn that off real quick. Now, I'm not yet done. With light coats, especially light colored paints, you really want to take it easy. I have a bad habit of getting in a hurry and basically trying to do everything in one fell swoop. It's just not going to happen, guys. You need to take your time, especially with these light colors. Do a coat, fiddle with something else for a second, let it dry a little bit, and then come in with your second coat. It may, especially in these lighter colors, it may take 3 or 4 times before you get it where it needs to be. You can see my pre-shading still coming through quite a bit, and it's just because it's such a lighter color with the dark pre-shading bleeding through. But you want to take it easy if you want a good coat. And the paint's going good so far. So I see a few little blemishes I'm not happy with, but at this point, guys, I'm not going to mess with it because, it's not a show model or anything. So, and, barely anybody will ever see the belly. So, I'm happy with it. It's looking good so far. So it's dried a little bit. I've got some fans going in here. I'm going to mix up a little more paint. Normally you would want to get all your paint done in one color, especially with the custom blend like this. But excuse me. Whew, paint's a little strong, guys. I didn't mix enough, so have to do a little bit more. So we're going to do some more of that duck egg blue, which I can't believe I had that, guys. I think I bought that for an Israeli F-16. They were the only ones I thought ever used that, but apparently the Commonwealth used Duckak Blue for their bellies. No offense to anybody out there. I love you, Brits. You guys put out some ace modeling content. Shout out to Mr. Oxley, Mr. Flory. I'm so envious of you guys with the shows you have over there. It's, man, the hobby feels like it's dying here in the U.S. I just, it's, you know, it's hard to meet anybody that even knows what this stuff is anymore. I've been going to shows since I was probably 8 years old, and you know, my dad introduced me to this hobby. He's not with us anymore, but I know he would love the idea that I'd be keeping this going. So I'm just gonna let it dry for another second here, and then we'll get that other coat on. And then we should be good. On the belly, does anybody take a guess who the artist is of this Hobbycraft boxing? If I had to guess based on the paint style, I can't see an autograph anywhere. Let me see if I can find an autograph. It looks to be, and again, I'm just guessing here, it looks to be from the late Don Greer. Now, I met Don Greer when I was working at Squadron. He was actually still the head artist there. Did a lot of book covers for Squadron, and very talented artist, really nice guy as well. I was sad that we lost him a few years ago, but the guy just captured, I mean, great angles that really emphasized the aircraft, but also gave it life. I mean, I used to, when I was a kid, just stare at a lot of his artwork because my dad had a stack of Squadron books, and I was so fortunate to be able to meet him and work at Squadron when he was there. I remember he had this giant screen that he would basically have images on, and he would draw and paint referencing that screen at Squadron. And just a little bit of model history for you there. I'm pretty sure, like I said, I'm pretty sure this is Don Greer. I know some of the other box art, their Corsairs were Don Greer as well. I don't think he did all their artwork, but I know he did quite a few. He also painted for Monogram for a lot of years. I'm trying to think of who else. AMT. Yeah, so he's a, look him up. He was a big part of the model building world, especially in the 70s and 80s, and just love his stuff. So rest in peace, Mr. Greer. All right, so we should be ready to go. Turn the compressor back on. A little more thinner. Mix it up. All right. ignition in here, guys. Alright guys, that coat was a little bit thicker than I wanted it to be. So what I'm going to do, I've got a little bit of paint left in the cup. Just a tiny little smudging down at the bottom. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some Mr. Leveling Thinner, and what that'll do, that'll give me a really high ratio coat of thinner to paint. And what that's going to help do is level the rest of this out. So as thick as this is, it's going to help thin it out a little bit, and those pre-shading lines will start to bleed through a little bit stronger. Like I said, that coat was a little bit thicker than I wanted it to be, so the texture is not exactly as smooth as I'd like it. So we're going to give that a shot and see what we get. Alright guys, so that was a really wet coat. You can see how shiny it is, and I actually got my finger in a bad spot, so we'll fix that. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. It's just the right, I know the camera's not really picking it up too good, but it's just the right tone of being able to see the pre-shading, but it's not overdone. That's the way I like it. I don't want the pre-shading so in your face that you're like, wow, you know, it's basically what I call it, like Michael Bay modeling, where things are just so exaggerated, you know. Some people, that's their cup of tea, and that's fine for them and their models. That's just not what I like. So I like that subtleness where you can see the different variations and panel lines. And mind you, this is going to be, you know, have wash and oils and all the, we're going to throw all the good weathering stuff at it. Beautiful thing about warbirds, they lend themselves to good weathering. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to let this dry right now. Go ahead and take my gloves off. My hands are all sweaty because it's so hot out here. But that's just kind of an introduction and how I start a camo paint. You know, we'll move on to the top part. I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit, air this place out, and you can get a good feel for how to start that. Please, if you have any questions, just put them down below. I would love to respond to them. I love talking about this stuff. This is my passion. This is my interest. You know, we all got to work a regular job, but this is what I want to be doing with my life. So if you can help me do that and survive, then man, that would be awesome. But anyways, you guys, I hope you're out there modeling. I hope you're staying safe. And till next time, I look forward to you coming around Outdoor Scale Models.
Smoker Wedding Mark.